So you may or may not know, but I'm somebody who likes my retro gaming, especially since I grew up in the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance era, which I think is the best era of gaming in my opinion. And I've played with products that have brought the retro kind of style gaming back into the modern days of 2025. So when the company Soolra reached out and they wanted to send over their kind of emulator physical button hardware case for the iPhone, I obviously had to check that out because, again, I've played with things like the Analog Pocket, which is one of my favorite devices, but this is a dedicated kind of Game Boy replacement, kind of brought into modern day. And then I've also tried this kind of idea with the case with a company called Game Baby a few months back, but Soolra aims to really kind of alleviate some of the pain points of some of these cases that I've seen in the past. So let's see if it's worth it and what exactly it means, because there is an app that goes with it versus these other ones you just use the Delta emulator app. So let's load this up together, open it, get the first impressions, and actually just set this up for the first time together and see if it's going to be worth your money with the 16 Pro. Let's get into it. But now, if you enjoy videos like this one, definitely consider subscribing to the channel because it helps motivate us to make more videos like this one and review these kind of cool, nuanced products that maybe is kind of niche, but for the right person, it's a perfect gift, the perfect kind of use case, and it checks off a bunch of boxes, not only a case, but hopefully also to bring back that retro feel on the go directly on your iPhone without having to get an actual extra piece of hardware like this one right here, which even though I love it, it is relatively expensive. So again, as I mentioned, I actually haven't opened this at all, and we're going to do this together for the first time, and the one that I have is for the 16 Pro. Unfortunately, they don't have a 16 Pro Max version yet, and in terms of availability, they go all the way back to the iPhone 13, but you're pretty much stuck with the 13, the 13 Pro, 14, 14 Pro, 15, 15 Pro, and then again, like I said, 16 and 16 Pro, but they also have one for the 16E, which is cool to see, but you can see that the packaging is actually, I think, how it's supposed to be when it comes to the actual case. So I think it's like a foreshadow into what the case can be like. Let's move this stuff out of the way and really just see what we're dealing with here. So first off, very cool in packaging because it opens up midway through, similar to how the case is going to be like I mentioned. And right off the bat, especially compared to the Game Baby case, this thing is way more robust. It feels a lot more premium. Interesting. Okay. This thing is kind of thick actually. As you can see right there, this is the iPhone for comparison. It's about twice the thickness of the iPhone, if I would say, compared to maybe the Analog Pocket. Probably a little thinner than the bottom piece of the Analog Pocket, but let's see what that means because there is a USB-C port right here. So I don't know, I guess maybe this needs an actual charge to really work and things like that. But I think the idea is that you just separate it, and then inside there's gotta be some sort of components in here because there's analog sticks. The Game Baby down here, as you can see, does not have analog sticks, and the Game Baby just relies on just touch, right? So it's actually just mimicking your finger touch on the display, versus this one's definitely doing something, and that's probably why you actually need a secondary application or something different that isn't just a Delta emulator. But also, it's a lot more confidence-inducing when you do put this together. So let's actually see what else is in here. So just a regular thing here. Your mobile console. So some paperwork. I like this little guy right here. That's kind of nice. But what else do we have here? So it's going to want you to download the application, which we'll do that now. So again, I have my 16 Pro. Let's download this and do it together in real time. So again, this will be interesting because the only real emulator that I've ever used dating back, maybe even a decade now at this point, is like GBA for iOS, which is back during the jailbreak days, which eventually became Delta Emulator. And then outside of that, I did test one for my Apple Watch, which was kind of fun to see. But let's download the Soolra app and see what we're getting ourselves into. So it looks, again, very similar to something like a GBA for iOS or a Delta Emulator, but we'll open this. This is what the Soolra app looks like. Again, I'm opening this for the first time with you guys. Figured this would be a fun, casual video to see if it is going to be worth your time. But okay, it looks like there is some predetermined games on here. You can see that the actual D-pad is going to mimic exactly what this one is, which makes complete sense because when you put it on, that's what it's going to be looking like. And again, I think it's kind of cool that you do have the analog sticks. I wonder if this speaker does anything, or is that just there for show? I think it's just there for show. But let's see what this means. I'm definitely going to want to add my Pokemon games in here, so let's do that real quick, and then we'll come back to the video. Well, everyone, as you can see, I did plug it in via USB, and it is charging. There's a little indicator light right there to let you know that it's charging. So red means that it's currently charging, and then when it goes to green, that means it's fully charged. So this means that this is a Bluetooth connected device, which is interesting. So we're going to pair this up in real time to see what that looks like. And according to the instructions, let's unplug this. But what you want to do is hold both the select and the start button together until something flashes. And as you can see, it is flashing. So hopefully it does show up here. Soolra controller, it does show up. It connected pretty automatically. I am running iOS 26, so you saw that little controller animation that showed up there. And I think in general, I just have to slide this on, so we'll take this apart. I do like how there's a microfiber lining on here to protect the device. The difference here is that this is all very hard plastic, so this didn't protect the device too much, and this is made out of kind of like a plastic rubbery material. But let's put this on here. We'll slap this on, fits very easily. We can slide this bottom piece on, locks into place, and this is what the case looks like. So again, from the front, it looks pretty normal. From the side, it is a thick boy, but it does give you access to your, camera button or camera control button. You have your hold button. Gives you clear access to USB-C port as well as your speakers. Full access to the action button here, and then your up and down volume. But this is pretty funny. I mean, it's a very sunken hole in here, but you do have, again, all this back here. So this should be a very good experience overall. I mean, that's what I'm expecting because you are adding this kind of thick bulk to the back of your iPhone. But if you do get around that, or if you want to bring that with you, again, it'll be pretty easy to carry, and it's much lighter, so this does not actually feel heavy whatsoever, even though it is a little bit on the thicker side. But just know that it is a little bit thicker, but it does still feel very light and is still very pocketable, especially since we're only dealing with the 16 Pro size. If this was the Pro Max, it might be a little bit too big for most people, but I think this form factor is pretty decent. But now let's actually, use this as a controller. So if we go back into our settings, make sure we're still connected. So the Soolra controller is connected. And one thing to note when it comes to overall battery life and kind of standby time and things like that, if you remove it and kind of place it back like this without turning it off, without holding down that select and that start button, and if you've been idle for about 5 minutes, it will automatically shut off. But let's actually remove this. So let's see if it slides off. It slides off pretty easily. Let's go into our Soolra emulator. Let's go into here. And I think, in theory, I should be... Ooh, okay. So even when you're on the main menu screen here, the actual controllers work. So I am moving around. As you can see, I added these 3 games. These games came pre-installed, all this down here, but I added in these 2 Pokemon games as well as Super Mario Advance 3. Another thing to note with this, as of right now, as of recording this only supports GBA games, not Game Boy Color games, and then NES games. So those are the 2 emulation games that you can actually control. But let's open up something like Fire Red. So this already feels light years more sturdy and better than this controller. Again, you are sacrificing a little bit of heft and size and things like that, of course, thickness. But this feels way more sturdy. This feels way more Game Boy-like. This feels like it was meant to work this way. But let's fire this up and see what we can get ourselves into. So I do want to put the fast forward on just because that's easy, but this is what the menu looks like. You have your resume, your save game, cheat codes, load game, and then of course exit. So I'm going to press resume here, go a little bit faster. Hopefully it does pick up. And these feel like real buttons, and I guess they really are, right? So if I press A, it keeps going. So let's actually pick a different game that we can really fire on and see what it looks like to move around with these buttons, because overall this looks great. I just want to see how well it works. We'll play single player. We'll go with Mario Bros, make it easy. So you can see we're moving here, right? We're pressing that. As you can see, everything's working fine. So my overall assessment of this kind of game controller is that it does work very well. So it feels like a real Game Boy. It doesn't feel like a kind of added on piece, which again, it should, because we are dealing with something that's a little bit thicker, that's meant to be used as an actual game controller. So I do like how this kind of fits as a game controller. If you are somebody that wants to play it and wants to use this as close as possible to the real experience of using a Game Boy with your iPhone, this is the case that you're going to want to go with, because it's real controls, it's real tangible. You have the actual analog sticks here, which as you can see, it did work for a split second there before I ran into one of the turtles, but overall, I think it's a very cool device. So what are my final thoughts on the Soolra kind of Game Boy emulator case? I think it's a cool idea, right? This does feel like it was a little bit more well-made than the Game Baby. The Game Baby one kind of felt like it was 3D printed by somebody, which is totally fine. I mean, they solved a problem, and again, the price reflected it. I believe this was $30 to start and eventually got up to 40 bucks. This one does retail for $80 directly from Soolra's website. It is available today if you guys want to pick it up for the iPhone 13, the 13 Pro, like I mentioned earlier, all the way to the 16 Pro. They don't have any for the mini or the plus sizes or the Pro Max sizes, but I did hear that they are coming out with a Pro Max version when the iPhone 17 comes out. So to each their own. I do actually like how they didn't turn this into maybe like a battery case, or that you didn't need to actually hardwire in, because that would just add additional bulk and additional thickness, even vertically, which is something that people aren't going to want. So the Bluetooth nature of it, I'm not upset about. And I do like how it just makes it feel more Game Boy-like because it is thicker. Most Game Boys are thicker than iPhones. Most Game Boys, again, like I said, the analog pocket is much thicker than a regular smartphone. So giving you kind of that girthiness, for lack of a better term, when you are in that handheld mode, makes you feel like you are holding a real Game Boy, and it's not kind of like an emulation of a Game Boy, which is not what we want to see. So the thickness for the right person won't matter at all. And again, it's very pocketable. You easily turn it off. It's not going to turn on by accident or anything like that. So again, I just turned it off right here. You charge it via USB-C. I'm curious to see how long the battery is going to last, but again, it's a very low-band Bluetooth connection, so it should last you for hours on end. But let me know in the comment down below what you think. I'm going to leave a link down below. Feel free to pick one up if you guys want to. For $80 for the right person, I think it's a nice gift or a worthwhile investment if you are somebody who likes a retro game on the go and you don't want to bring an additional device. But that'll do it for this video, everybody. Let me know in the comment down below what you think. Are you going to pick one of these up? Is it going to be worth that money? Always curious to know your thoughts. And let me know what your favorite old school retro game is, or console. Always curious to know that as well. But that'll do it for this video, everybody. If you made it to the end, leave a dolphin. If you want to watch more videos like this, click on one of these right here. Until next time, I'm Fernando. Peace, everyone.